gonna be finished.
Board of County Commissioners back in session. Next on the agenda would be Ms. Marcia Johnson, Clerk of Court. Madam Clerk.
I'm happy to report, I don't have a report this morning.
No report from the clerk today. Next will be Mr. Alan Pierce. Restore Coordinator report.
Good morning. Mine's fairly straightforward, except for one item that has some discussion. All right, so first item is board direction on paying the ARPC $1,000 for assistance in developing economic data for the county's Triumph project. Mark Carrington and I met with Triumph staff last week regarding the Armory application. In order for the Armory application to document the return on investment, ROI, which is the acronym people they threw around a lot, equal to a $2 million Triumph investment, Mark and I recommend that we hire the ARPC to assist in developing some economic data directly related to the Armory. And specifically, I should have mentioned this, or I could have mentioned when Opportunity Florida people here. The Opportunity Florida and ARPC have jointly done something. The ARPC is paid for something called REMI. REMI stands for Regional Economic Modeling Initiative, and they have bought the software for that. The Opportunity Florida has a different software, and depending on what kind of data you need, the ARPC and Opportunity Florida are sharing that capability. Well, the data that we want is usually generated from a REMI model, and that's what the ARPC has. So if you all support that $1,000 expenditure, that'll allow us to get data in the format that Triumph wants to see it in.
So moved.
Wait.
You got a comment, Mr. Lawson?
Yeah, I'll hold
You-
my motion until he.
Who paying? They coming out the Triumph money?
No, the $1,000 coming out of our pocket. Because we got to develop the application. So it'll come out of our professional services.
What I want, the question I need to know is, Triumph not paying for,
No. If we want an application that meets their standards, we have to pay for it. And right now it's $1,000, and I don't expect it to be anything more than that. I mean, there's not any other outside expenses that I know of.
Basically what they do, Alan, is they'll come in and say, these many people come in for a wedding, they have to stay somewhere, so it figures in all that money. They have to eat, that figures in all that money.
Right.
To show the economic benefit of this $2 million that we applied for the Armory. To make it worthwhile, shows Triumph that we'll have a good return on our investment, and getting statistical data is part of the application process. Is that
And
correct?
this REMI is apparently something that these two, this Triumph staff is familiar with and comfortable with, so that's why we're using that system. We could probably generate this on our own, Commissioner Lockley, but I just soon spend the $1,000 and get it put into the way they like to see it.
I ain't got no problem with it. I just want to know what Triumph, I heard Triumph say they wasn't paying, they wasn't gonna pay for no.
Right, they're not paying consultants, we're not asking to, we're just doing this on our own.
And what we're talking about is the same thing a consultant would do.
Yes,
Is get the
that's correct.
statistical data and all that, so for $1,000, and we're not hiring a consultant. And as Alan said, the Triumph Board is aware of Opportunity Florida, which we just hired, along with the ARPC, and being able to help us with the statistical data,
Yeah.
which is why they said they wouldn't give us no money for a big consultant, because we don't need it if we just utilize the abilities that we have already with these two agencies. Correct?
Right, that's correct.
Pleasure of the board.
I made a motion to approve, and it may not take $1,000.
It may not, it's an hourly basis, it's $50 an hour.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Sanders, second by Commissioner Massey. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries.
Number two, inform the board that Chairman Parrish and I met with Cal Knickerbocker of DAX regarding the expansion of aquaculture leases in waters around Franklin County. As the board knows, the state of Florida does not require board action to approve any leases, but DAX would like to hear comments on the two proposed leases. And it's in your packet. The first is a 41-acre expansion of the leased area in Alligator Harbor. The second is the creation of a new 131-acre lease area in Ocklawaha Bay. Both these sites would be divided into approximately 1.5-acre parcels to be leased out to individuals, and the leases would include bottom and water column use. The leases could be for oysters or clams, and the diagrams are in your packet. So if you have any comments to make, that's, I hate to say it this way, that's all the DAX wants to hear about. They don't.
Mr. Chairman, can I comment a little bit? Right here it says that DAX does not need the approval of the Board of County Commissioners. Well, what has changed in their mission? Because back in 1999, 2000, 2001, they would not proceed on aquaculture leases until the board said we approved it.
All right.
Y'all, well,
I
y'all
wasn't
don't
here.
remember. I'm sorry. But And that's what they did. Now, also, when the 46 leases came up to effect in, the Alligator Harbor, the 46 leases was made up, and it was told to DAX and approved by the legislature and DAX to go down as Franklin County residents got first preference and Wakulla County residents got second preference and all others. How are they gonna do this? Because this has got me concerned. 41 leases needs to be the 41 displaced oystermen and all those people that are not able to do that. And also, why are they picking the area of Cherries Creek coming out in Ochlockonee Bay? That concerns me there also. I mean, I can go on and go on about it because I know so much about it. But the thing about it is I want to know, and you need to contact Cal Knickerbocker unless he's told y'all, Mr. Chairman, what has changed that the Board of County Commissioners don't have a say in this? And we are requesting that we have that preference on 46 leases. We want it to spill over on the other 41 leases, and any lands that connects to Franklin County land that is gonna be in leases needs to have Franklin County folks first preference, Wakulla second. Now, that's just the way it is.
I agree with your comments, and also, this additional lease bottom that you're proposing needs to be fully, utilized before they look at any other leases in Apalachicola Bay.
Right.
As it refers to open water leases where you're interfering with your crabbing, your shrimping, your floundering, your guide fishermen, all these things need to be considered in that particular area that they're wanting to expand these two leases. I don't think you have all those conflicts. So, to me, before they ask for anything else in Apalachicola Bay, then they need to, these leases need to be fully utilized. And I also agree with Commissioner Sanders' statement that people in Franklin County ought to be given preference for this.
I agree with you, sir.
Well, and another thing, Mr. Chairman, y'all go and look at the map, and we've got it on our iPad, and it's up underneath the restore report. If you look, you will see the 46 leases right there. At the end of the 46 lease, that area in there, if you come over to the east, you'll go and you'll look, that's 98, that big road, okay? You see that little road coming off, and it goes right in there? That area right in there is what we call Oyster Island. That is a very productive bar on its own. You see what I'm saying? But the 41 other acres that's going to the east, they're gonna have to have some other area other than Leonard's Landing to put in their boats. And so you know where that's at, folks? Sun and Sands, down there off of 370 going to Alligator Point. So if they're intending to do that, I think we have a right, the county commissioners have a right to say that we are concerned about this area because you're gonna have to have a good enough boat ramp for 41 leaseholders or around that to be able to use to get out to their lease. And right there at Sun and Sands, that boat ramp is not gonna be sufficient.
There's no parking.
There's no parking. They're using the side of the road now. So, I mean, I'm just telling you, I'm very upset at this, that they think that DAX, Department of Ag and Consumer Services, Division of Aquaculture, think that the Board of County Commissioners does not need to have a say on this. Now, I'm gonna tell you something.
Well,
You know, I like the idea of doing this. We asked them back in 2000, 2001, would they go to expand? And if you'll look, you had another map on there, Alan, that showed around the St. Teresa area, I thought I was looking at. Let's see, yeah, here it is. Yeah, see right here, this is part of the lease right here, but then you look right out here, you see that right there?
Yeah.
They got that in proposed, right in there.
I didn't even recognize
That's
that.
St. Teresa right there.
You're right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we need to get clarification on it. But I am thoroughly opposed to using any open waters or oyster bars or anything like this for any of the aquaculture until we see if this works, because we asked them back in 2001 to extend it over to, around between Lanark and Carabel. At the mouth of the river, we got those oysters right out there, William. And they said, oh, that's good salinity. That would be very good. There's parts of our bay that can do the aquaculture, but there's parts of our bay that's not gonna be able to do the aquaculture. And they don't need to be putting something there that don't need to be there. It's gonna impinge on the crabbers, like Commissioner Perry said, the crabbers, the shrimpers, the, flounders, the mullet fishermen, whatever. But I'm real concerned that they don't think that we need to comment or have any kind of, thing. Anyway,
If you look right here,
Uh-huh,
it's already been approved.
it's approved.
It's just gotta go to the governor and cabinet for final approval, and they're just asking us for comments. But if you look on the paperwork, it's already approved.
But what we need to do, but what we need to do is before it goes any farther than this, we need to write that letter to the governor and to the representatives, Senate and House of Representatives, and let them know that when this aquaculture lease was first in concept at Alligator Harbor, that Franklin County folks got first preference. And we need it to be extended throughout the other leases. Don't y'all agree?
Yep.
I agree.
And they need to utilize what's been approved before they even think about doing any more leases. I know in Wakulla County, they said they didn't want no more oyster leases over there because of the conflict and people tearing up each other's leases and all this stuff. They've only got 45 and they don't want no more. So what it looks like to me is they're moving them over to Franklin County because Wakulla County don't want no more.
Yeah.
And as you said, if all this stuff's in Franklin County, but it's being utilized by the different counties, oystermen, and our local people are not able to have that ability, that ain't fair either.
See,
The way this is messed up. The way they wording this thing, county commission ain't got nothing to do with it. I know, cause somebody right in New England right now can have them a lease next whenever they open up. We won't have no say so. Okay. My thing is this, you got a whole bay out there that's sick, 2/3 dead, 90% dead, and you got people out of work. But they gonna open this thing up to the whole world. I think it not only should be, I think it should be just in the, with the money that they done spent, the state of Florida, I think it'd be right for them to just have maybe a lottery or something and let the oystermen who choose to do it be the ones who utilize them leases without outside help coming in. I mean, they out of work.
yeah.
And I think we should write them a letter and tell them that.
Yeah, cause if you don't, the outsiders are gonna get all the leases.
Yeah, it's just like,
There's some guy now wanting, 7 or 8, 10 acres, something leases, and he's not even from here.
I mean, it's just like, they doing it just like they do when they hunting and like everything, the people around here don't do it and be right in their back door when they do that kind of stuff.
And they're-
Don't bring it in.
In the conversation that me and Alan had with him, I related that your average local oysterman ain't gonna be able to, he don't have $60,000 to get started.
Right,
Now, even when you get started, you got a whole year, you're not gonna draw a check.
right.
Because you gotta get all this set up, you got to grow the oyster before you can sell it. Now, the more leases you have, and the more people selling, farm-raised oysters, you're gonna drive the price of the oyster down. So it's supply and demand, you know, I mean, it's just the way it is. The more there is out there, then you have to drop your prices in order to make a sale. And that also is going to hurt somebody making a $60,000 investment. We did understand that the state put in for some Triumph money. And the state was gonna match this money dollar for dollar to help some of the local oarsmen get involved. But I asked Cal, I said, well, who's gonna help them pay their bills for the first year? Because they're not gonna make no money. You gotta take gas, and you gotta run out there and work these leases, so where are they gonna get the money for that? Even if you get them the money to get them started, and how they gonna pay the bills for the first year? Because they're not gonna make no money for the first year. So how you gonna pay your mortgage? How you gonna feed your family when you're growing oysters? You gotta have a way to make a living in the meantime. So it puts your local people at a disadvantage. I think a lot of this is going back to where we wrote the letter when this originally began, that we were against growing these oysters in the water column, and it won't work over here because of your guide fishermen, your floundermen, as we've already spoke. Alligator Harbor's a little bit different, and they went ahead and done it anyway, and I think that's why they're not asking for any approval from the county, because they know how the county feels about it. They're just asking for your comments. I think that's where that came from. But if you allow them in open water and they interfere with shrimping or crabbing or floundering or guide fish, those people are gonna come down to this meeting and they're gonna say, well, the county voted to let them do it. Now we got problems. We can't make a living because you all went to growing oysters and you took up some of the bay where we used to shrimp or we used to crab. So, you know, it's just gonna be very difficult. And one thing I don't wanna get caught up in is having every lease they do come here for county approval.
Yeah.
Because then you gotta pick one industry over the other. And it puts this board in a bad position when you have to pick the shrimper over the oysterman or the oysterman over the flounderman, and you get into all that. And that's gonna be a total chaos
Oh, yeah.
all year long.
Yeah, it's gonna be a mess.
Everybody's phone's gonna be ringing off the hook. You cut me out, but you let this one go to work.
Well, they're not gonna let us do that anyway.
So
They don't even want
we,
to
like to
comment.
set
we
up
make our
deals.
comments, but I think these leases that they're expanding should be totally utilized before they grant any more leases.
Yeah.
Now, they're not asking us for that. It's state submerged land. They can lease to whoever they want to, whenever they want to. But that's my opinion, that if they're gonna expand these two leases, that they already fully utilize them before they grant any more leases. Why you have all these leases scattered everywhere and not being utilized?
Well, I can't understand why they got Cheers Creek. If you look down here, Smokey, look here. That's Cheers Creek right there. Why have they got that in there? That is a navigable creek right there.
That's,
That's
they're
Cheers.
calling that Okalotna River?
This is Okalotna River.
Oh, okay.
And that's Cheers Creek. That comes up, it's just a little,
Kinda like a lagoon.
northwest of.
It used to be closed.
Point. Huh?
It used to be closed
I
up in
know,
there.
but you see it right there?
Yeah, I
And it's
see
just
it.
that little spot. Don't even say how many acres it is.
I
It
don't-
says that. I'm just concerned with the way they're
What are you
doing.
looking at?
Oh,
This one
almost
here?
the last one, almost the last one,
That old Knickerbocker man
Come
gonna
on
do
down.
what he wanna anyway.
yeah,
That's what he do. And I mean,
right there.
what is he
No.
asking for comments and he done all
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah.
In the middle of
See
that
it?
creek,
Yeah,
yeah.
see it, right there in the middle of the creek.
Don't make sense.
Anyway.
Commissioner, I think the reason that they're only asking comments, and I'll defer to the attorney, he may not know off the top of his head either, is I
It's
thought
just
there
a
was,
format.
I thought there was a lawsuit
It's
that
just a
went
format,
through.
he gotta go through process,
There's a process, but I think there was a litigation 15 years ago or so that, and, because
That's
you're right, the
the only
county,
thing
the county
doing.
used to have the authority to approve leases, and I think there was, went all the way to the Florida Supreme Court, and I think that law was changed, that the state now.
Before my time,
Okay, well, I think.
But all
I'll-
they
I'll-
doing, I mean, what,
I will find out.
they done went to the process and got this for, and they gonna ask us for a comment? Man, they people playing with your intelligence. I ain't got nothing no way, tell them.
Every one of them's recommended approval, so they're gonna take it to the board, the cabinet, or the governor and cabinet, and
I'll find out when it is and I'll go and speak on it to it because I want them, just like I spoke on it for the aquaculture that is now in there. And that's what I'm saying, you know, they were very explicit back then, you know, back in the early 2000s, that this Board of County Commissioners supported it. Because if it did not support it, it's like when they tried to make those leases out there toward the high school out there, and it didn't go because the board didn't want it at that time. They didn't want it to go through, they told me personally, David Highland them told me personally, and you know, David was a good friend to us. And he told us, you know, if y'all are not for it, then we're not gonna push it. And
I
that's
think-
what he said.
You're exactly right, Commissioner. I think the law will change after that, though, because I think
Okay.
powers is stronger than.
And another question me and Alan asked him, said, well, you're gonna have a new governor, you're gonna have a new commissioner of agriculture, because Adam Putnam's running for office. You're gonna have a new CFO, which all these are
Yeah.
members of the cabinet. But they're pushing this stuff through while they got the current cabinet, which includes Mr. Putnam.
Yeah, we asked him,
And
why
these
can't we wait
guys
till
all
after?
work for Mr. Putnam, which is a member of the cabinet. So,
Yeah.
those questions were asked by Alan and myself.
We asked him, we deferred to November. No, we
We can't
basically told
defer
they're
to
gonna
November,
push
we
this
gotta do
through.
it now.
Right.
Well, we gonna, whatever we gonna do,
And these are the reasons they're doing it now.
yeah. He wants it pushed through before election.
And he works, he's got a job to do, and he's been told by his supervisor, this is what we need to do. But I think we've made our comments, unless the board member has more comments.
Commissioner Sanders, let me just ask one thing. What about this option? I just throw this out to put some of the burden back on the state. The FSU Marine Lab is now back in the hands of the governor of the Board of Trustees. It's not owned by FSU anymore. The FSU turned that land back over to the Internal Improvement Trust Fund, which is the cabinet. Should we say, look, you need to open up that FSU Marine Lab and let the aquaculture people use that as their landing source? Don't put all the burden on the county resources. If you're approving this thing in the state of Florida, you need to provide the opportunity for these people to launch their boats and bring all their gear in, make them go out of the FSU Marine Lab, the old FSU Marine Lab.
Yeah.
Is that an option?
Right. That's a good, yeah, I agree with you
They
on
gotta have a
that.
place to park. I mean,
Well, the
just
old
last
FSU Marine
week,
Lab
some-
has 3 acres of land fenced
Oh,
off.
yeah.
just a couple of weeks
Yeah.
ago, somebody was pulled off, towed from the Sunset Boat Ramp to East Point.
Mm-hmm.
And these people come in on a boat, had no car and didn't know where it went, no trailer, no nothing.
Mm.
Because there's nowhere for them to park. The
Well,
guy calls me and I turn him over to Alan, because he's more aware of that, area down there.
They should. I mean, if the state gonna be in control, just keep us out. They taking over like that, why, don't give up the bits and the pieces. Let them have the whole hog.
Well, it's like everything else, you gotta have public comment, and we're not the only ones that providing comment. If you look up here, tells you, all the different agencies. National Marine Fisheries, Army Corps of Engineers, Department of State, Department of Environmental Protection, Fish and Wildlife Conservation Committee, Board of County Commissioners. So they've asked for comments from 6 different.
Yeah, they got it, but they doing that just to make us feel good.
Yeah, because if you look on down, it says approved.
Yeah.
I mean, so they've already approved it. They're just saying that they took public comment, I guess,
You see this voting requirement for approval, 3 votes?
right,
Yeah.
which would come from the governor and cabinet.
And you need to see this, location, Oclotney Bay, Franklin County, Florida, so.
I go along with Alan on write a letter, if they're gonna pass it through, let them use the state land to launch the boat.
Yeah,
Because they're the ones that's pushing it, we don't have a county
We don't have
boat
the
ramp
facility.
to accommodate them, so they got the acre over there to do it. Across the street, they got land, they can park, down the other area, they got places.
tell them our boat ramps are busy with the people with our tourists and stuff.
And it is, I think.
They'll be interfering with our.
That Sun and Sand Boat Ramp is really just a street end. There's absolutely no
That's
parking.
exactly
It's a
right.
street end in the residential areas. It's gonna create a conflict if you have more uses.
They getting us a conflict, they conflicting with
Creating a conflict.
creating a conflict.
Okay,
Tell them to use their own.
okay. All right.
Let them come in front of this whole boulder, let us.
He ain't
go in
coming
front of them.
down here.
He's not doing that.
Well, let us go in front of them. Ask them, can we get an opportunity to go in front of them?
Turn.
Then I'd
Mr.
like to
Chairman,
make
if-
some comments.
As the board has mentioned, this is already approved
Yeah,
before they're even seeking your comments. I mean, that sort of speaks for itself, I suppose. Would the board like to authorize me to look into and investigate what your legal options are to filing a lawsuit to challenge the issuance of any approvals
so
for additional?
moved.
Yes, sir, second. Got a motion and second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Lockley, second by Commissioner Massey. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Do that as soon as possible.
Yes, sir. I'll have to get some additional information on where things are, but
I'm just hoping that our future ag commissioner, that she will look at everything and look at the issues at hand. Now, if y'all don't know who that is running, I'll tell y'all, but now I'm teasing. I'm just,
That man ain't been here in 8 years.
I'm not, no, and we invited him 3 times. I saw him outside the courtroom that day. He was going to that FWC meeting, if y'all remember, and he wouldn't even come and address us.
He's gonna shove it down our throats for November.
That's all we can say about that.
Okay, item number 3, inform the board that I will be getting with Mr. Schuer regarding a proposal from GSG on a potential MSBU for Alligator Drive maintenance. This initial consultation will focus on the legality of creating one assessment over a large area of the protection of the road. If it is found that applying an assessment over a large area is not legally defensible, then the county will be faced with creating higher assessments for a smaller number of parcels if it wants to move forward. Mr. Schuer and I will return with a report. I just haven't had time to get to Mr. Schuer. I just want to tell you that we are still working on that issue. And I presume Alligator Point is still mulling over its position also. So number 4, inform the board that Miss Whitney Barfield, not Coles, I forget her married name
Yeah,
also.
got me mixed up
Yeah,
here.
Barfield, and I participated in a site visit on Alligator Point with FEMA on March 28th. The purpose of the site visit was to close out the FEMA grant that was used to buy the Capital City property. The inspectors wanted some abandoned lumber and filter fabric to be cleaned up, so I went back to the property on March 29th with the road department, and they did an excellent job of removing the remaining debris. I have forwarded photos onto FEMA, and I'm waiting a response. One of the issues that FEMA had on site was whether we would have to remove part of the cul-de-sac. And I argued strongly against removing it, so we'll see what happens. It was just ridiculous to dig up part of the cul-de-sac to satisfy some issue that they had. We'll see. Number 5, consortium update. The public comment period for the state expenditure plan, known as the SEP, is complete. And so it is logical to conclude that the SEP is ready to go to the governor. That is not the case. I had a teleconference with the consortium staff, and this is the current status. Because there were extensive comments to the SEP from state and federal agencies, the consultants will not present a corrected SEP to the consortium at its April 26th meeting. It is the intent of the consultants to ask the consortium to hold a teleconference meeting sometime in May for the purpose of approving the SEP. If that happens, then the governor would get the SEP sometime in May or June, with the expectation of sending it to the Gulf Council for approval in June or July. The consultants still expect the SEP will be able to start processing projects for counties sometime in the fall of 2018. However, the administration of the project still has yet to be worked out, so I'm not sure exactly when the county should expect projects to be started. And Commissioner Sanders will, I guess you'll go to the April meeting. I don't have any idea what the reaction of the consortium is going to be, you know, because there was lots of comments. And I have a teleconference tomorrow with its staff to find out some more information. So I just pass on that they're slowly working through the process, but it's taking a long time. Number 6, provide board with a copy of the Triumph Letter of Support issued to FSU consistent with the $2 million cap the board created for the first round of projects. I'll put that in your file. We've done item number 7 already, and item number 8 we've basically done. Commissioner Jones asked last week to look at this qualified opportunity zone. The application deadline was March 29th, so I talked to the chairman, and based upon his directions and the support of the board, I did apply then for the county to be in this qualified opportunity zone. I didn't realize that Opportunity Forward had already done it on our behalf, but we'll see what happens. There are some, I forget how many hundreds of applications coming out of Florida, so it's going to be somewhat competitive. And to my knowledge, the jurisdiction of the governor is, I mean, he's got it's his call who he appoints, or who he nominates to get these zones.
It was around 1,700 qualified areas,
Yes.
and only 25% are
Yes,
we
we got awarded, yeah. And unless there's any other comments, that's my report.
Any comments from the board for Alan this morning?
We decided about the $2 million cap. Did they still don't got everybody on board on that?
Well, I mean, the city of Apalachicola was not on board with that. They're going ahead with their applications without asking the county for any letters of support. That's their prerogative. They can do what they want. The school board, there is a meeting on April 11th, and I'm not even sure what April 11th is, and I'm going to go to with the Triumph staff, and they've asked the county staff, they haven't had any elected officials, the county staff, to meet with them to talk about school board projects. Because the school board right now has, they have 2 projects in the pipeline. Neither one have received initial approval from the Triumph staff. One's for like $900,000, but one is like for $2.8 million. So, you know, the Triumph board and Mr. Jason Shove, who was the gentleman in the audience here this morning, he is our Triumph board member, and he's pushes very strong for workforce development. He wants the school systems to create a labor force that will be able to take advantage of the new jobs created. So he's very strong on workforce development and on school board, initiatives. So it may be that we come back to you all and say, I don't know yet.
But they weren't in the first
They
round.
weren't in the first round anyway.
Their project has not even been,
Right.
So they
yeah.
so what they put in for something like opening back up the old shop.
Yes, sir. Just something, I can't tell you more details, I don't know, but yes, yes. They say they want to create a shop program, house building program.
But Alan, their project is not only for the kids at the high school. These welding classes and different things are gonna be offered at night for adults as well.
Okay, you know more than I do.
And
They
that's
won't
gonna
be,
start
it
next
won't be
year.
adults and children in the same class. The children will take it during school, then they're gonna open it up for adults at night to actually train some of the people being displaced through the oyster industry to get other skills that they can utilize to take care of their families with. So
That's a good thing.
it's community-wide, not just kids, is what I'm trying to say.
And Commissioner Locker, I think the board, and of course, I recommended this, so I certainly support it. I think the initial idea of trying to be fair to every applicant, which was $2 million, so to make sure everybody had an opportunity to apply, I think that was fair. And so now that we see who's out there, because I will tell you, we've asked for $2 million for the armory, but we certainly may come back and ask you all for a project out of the airport. So ultimately, the county may have more than $2 million in there, but we want everybody to have an opportunity to try and work together. The city of Apalachicola has decided that all their projects are equally valuable, and they're often doing their thing.
And the school was not part of
And the school's not part
round
of this,
one
right.
because they hadn't even submitted their application. And once they get that, then they gotta submit a full application. So you're talking about a few months down the road before they can submit that
likely.
full application, so.
So probably we looking at monies in 2020.
I
Hopefully
don't
not,
know. I mean,
hopefully not.
Commissioner, this is how, so the Triumph staff has received, the Triumph board has received 140 pre-applications at this point, 140 pre-applications. At the last meeting that I went to in March, they approved one. I mean, it's taking a long time to get these applications to the status that the Triumph board is comfortable with. They have 4 more they think they'll approve in April. So that's to be a total of 5 out of 140. I mean, they have a lot of work to do, and how fast they do it, I have no idea.
So when they approve them, do they give them the money then?
No. Now you have to work out a contract, because the contract will contain the clawback requirements or the clawback provisions there if you don't meet your requirement, if you don't meet your productivity.
You gotta pay the money
So
back.
there's gonna be once your application's approved, then you sign a contract saying that you're gonna get this money if you do these steps.
And if you don't do them, you pay the money back. That's what we've been trying to tell everybody. Which
So
goes
20
back
don't
to
know.
trying to get the statistical data that we approved earlier from ARPC to make our application complete and showing that we can do what we're saying we're gonna do.
I mean, Commissioner, like where we stand in their list, I have no idea as far as how fast they get to it. I mean, I have no idea. But they're under a burden because, by next legislative session, I'm sure the legislature is going to want a report from the Triumph staff. Well, how many applications have you approved? Because if it isn't sufficient, the legislature has the ability to change the law and not give them any more money.
Take over.
And
Take it over.
they get,
Yeah.
there's another round of funding next year.
I thought they skipped a year.
Well, they did, they got this in 17.
Oh, that's right. So 18 they
We're
skipped, so
in
they need money
18,
to, you're right.
and in 19, it goes
Another
for the
300 million.
legislature, and if they haven't spent this money, but also spent it wisely and prudently, then the state could keep their round of money in 2019 and not give it to the Triumph Board.
That's correct.
So that's why they're trying to make everything, and do their due diligence and the clawbacks and all this, but I don't think it's gonna be 2020 before we get the money. If the Army's approved, we should get the money this year and be able to get started.
I hope so. It's just a matter, I just have no idea,
Because we're guaranteed 15 million out of this first 300 million, so.
Yes, that's correct.
I don't see why it's so hard to get the money going. They got the money, and as long as the project's approved, we should start seeing more and more projects approved, I believe.
I hope
You
so.
said 5 in April, but I think as you move into May and June, you're gonna see a lot more projects approved if they meet the criteria.
I hope so, but I mean, part of the Triumph staff's problem is only 2 of them. They don't have that many people to help on this.
They talked about us, poor Oysterman, about getting a little money from BP. And we didn't get nothing but a penny, and now they people getting the money. They ain't talking about them, but look like they fighting more than the Artemis was. All the Artemis wanted to do was eat.
Any other comments from Mr. Allen? Mr. Morone, County Coordinator report?
All right, Commissioners. Buckle up for a little bit. Okay, item number one, very long, a lot of parts to it. My Weems update. As of yesterday, April 2nd, the operating account balance is $171,992. Not reflected in this amount is a pending $45,000 deposit and the $252,774 payment from the county. That includes the ambulance subsidy and January sales surtax distribution. Weems was informed that they should be receiving approximately $743,606 of lip and dish funds this week. I will update the board once Weems has received the funds. The balance in the money market savings account remains at $353,019. B, health management proposals. The Weems Board of Directors, I'll refer to them as the Board of Directors henceforth, met on Thursday, March 29th. At this regular meeting, Ms. Kristen Anderson, Pastor David Walker, Mr. Michael Clark, and I were seated as new board members. One of the first items discussed were options for the future of health care in the county. Item number one, and next item, Sacred Heart. We did that first since they had a proposal in front of us. Some of the concerns regarding the Sacred Heart proposal expressed by the Board of Directors included the loss of jobs and loss of the critical access designation, which would effectively close the door on any chances of a future hospital. In addition, it was asked how the county would guarantee that Sacred Heart would stay and operate the new facility for years to come, since we would no longer have the critical access designation. There was a comparison of the Sacred Heart plan to build this new facility and then lease it to the county versus the county using the USDA loan to build its own facility. The importance of Sacred Heart's proposal to increase the services at Weems East in Carabel was also discussed at length. If there's no objection from this commission, I will create a list of all the questions from the Board of Directors and concerns and forward it to Mr. Roger Hall, Sacred Heart's president, for a response. I will also say I had a call on Friday from, I won't say the name, I'll just say someone that, was working with us with the Sacred Heart proposal and kind of giving me a message that we could kind of go slow and, with the proposal, I didn't want it rushed. My only concern with that, after I thought about it, and I went and I pulled out the proposal from Sacred Heart, is it has a May 1st, 2018 deadline on it. So I guess I'll have to include that in my request and say, okay, what is it? Is this a hard, fast date? Or, are you offering an extension here for this, for this proposal? I don't know. So I'll include that in my discussion.
I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to where Michael can keep this going, that we direct him to get a hold of Mr. Roger Hall for a response of these questions and ask him, and this will be coming from the board through you, and ask him about that May 1st deadline.
Okay.
And then report back to the board. And I'm doing that by motion to where you, Michael Morone, can take care of it.
Sir,
Okay.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Sanders, second by Commissioner Lockley. Any further discussion?
I would like to ask something, I'm sorry. I would like to ask, if we're gonna do that, since the proposal is in the form of writing, can we also get whatever response is given in writing?
From Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lockley, you had a comment?
yeah, we don't need to slow down on this. I mean, this, we behind anyway, and all the way. We got to make a move. That's all that.
Okay, Mr. Morone.
Okay, so.
We didn't vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We didn't vote. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries.
Okay, part two of the healthcare management proposal discussion. Community Hospital Corporation. After the Board of Directors discussed CHC's proposal to manage Weems for 2 years without risk at a rate of $30,000 per month plus expenses, there was a motion that passed unanimously recommending that the county cease any further negotiations with CHC. The Board of Directors feels that some, if not most, of the deficiencies stated in the operational assessment could be addressed with the current administrative staff. There was a motion that also passed unanimously directing Mr. Cooper to create a list of deficiencies stated in the operational assessment for the Board of Directors to review at the next meeting. Board action to accept the Weems Board of Directors' recommendation to terminate negotiations with CHC.
I make a motion.
Second.
We got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Massey, second by Commissioner Sanders. Any further discussion?
Yeah, that CHC, they out for what they, they out for what they can get. It's gonna cost too much for them, what they proposing. It's costing, it'll cost the county too much money. And don't look like we're getting, we just not getting what we should in response for what all they doing is doing a little paperwork, and we need more than that.
Just to give you guys my plan to work with the Weems Board of Directors is that once Mr. Cooper creates this list, I figure we pick 2 or 3 and then tell Mr. Cooper, okay, come up with a work plan for these 3 items. We think you can address those. Now, I won't tell you, there won't be times we won't come back to this board and say, look, we need a consultant or we need to hire somebody. Maybe we go to TMH and say, help us with the billing, because it was pointed out that the coding is wrong. That's why we're losing so much money, you see? See if TMH would help us. But I think one by one, we could try and hit some of these items on this list and get them taken care of, which won't cost us $30,000 a month plus expenses. So.
You know, they bringing in, all they bringing in is people to really build. They bringing in a big billing organization. We need some professionals in there, you know, some that go put out some service.
Mm-hmm.
All they want to charge so much to collect money. That's their specialty there. I guess they do, but it don't worth that kind of money. Not for what they asking. I mean, these other people come up with saying they willing to even build a whole place and furnish it with doctors. That's what you make money with, doctor, and specialty too. That's what the people need. I mean, I don't need no bill. I mean, anybody can add up a bill and send it to the end. You need somebody. I want somebody to get me well when I'm sick. And a specialty, them specialties is what people need, and doctors, and more than somebody in them sending out the paperwork. Hey, I'll pay you if you keep. I ain't gonna pay you no way if I'm dead.
We do have a motion and a second on the floor. You're right. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
The next proposal we discussed was the Alliant Tallahassee Memorial Hospital proposal. I provided some history regarding the discussions of our partnership with Alliant, who would provide management of Weems, and TMH, who would provide the general practitioners, specialty doctors, and other health and medical services, or basically what you're referring to, Commissioner. The Board of Directors has requested a summary proposal similar to what Sacred Heart has submitted for their review. I've asked Mr. Cooper to contact Mr. Mark O'Brien, that's TMH CEO, and request this proposal. Actually, Mr. Cooper's day to meet with Mr. Mark O'Brien, fortunately, was yesterday. So we talked on the phone on his way up to Tallahassee, and he was going to get Mr. Mark O'Brien to start working on that proposal. So hopefully within a week or 2, we should have that definitely before the next Weems Board of Directors meeting, and then they should be able to vet that proposal in the same manner, express their concerns that they have with the Sacred Heart proposal. All right, so with that. C, item 1C. Mr. Cooper presented a proposal to create a 501c3, which he stated would allow him to create better benefits, including some type of retirement plan for both hospital and EMS employees. Mr. Cooper explained that better benefits would help with recruitment and a more stable workforce, This plan would cost approximately $43,000 a year and will be paid by Weems, not the county. A copy of this plan is included in your packet. Board action to authorize Attorney Schuler to meet with Mr. Cooper to discuss and review this 501c3 proposal further.
So moved.
I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Lockley.
I'll second that, but I want to include Michael Marone with that, since he is the, hospital board chairman, to where you'll be aware, so you can let the county know also on your end, as well as Mr. Schuler can let it know on the legal end.
Okay.
Mr. Lockley, you'll amend your motion?
Yeah, I amend it, and y'all try to get that back as soon as, I mean, you know, as early as possible so we can put it out there to the people who working at the different facilities.
Yeah, just to explain further, that was Mr. Cooper's task him with coming up, well, actually, his board did, but come up with something that we could do to better the situation out there. Because we heard a lot of claims, a lot of complaints through the EMS, employees. And, there was some justified claims, so we're trying our best to
You
do
have a
what we
second,
can do.
Mr. Chairman?
You have a motion by
second it.
Commissioner Lockley, second by Commissioner Sanders.
Okay.
That's
I
correct.
second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All opposed? That motion carries.
I'm not sure the spelling of her name is right, but Mr. Cooper stated that Ms. Courtney Alford would serve as the interim director of nursing while Ms. Becky Gibson continued her rehabilitation. He also informed the board that Mr. Mike Murphy resigned as interim EMS director some time ago, but agreed to continue creating the schedules and entering the runs into the billing system until a new EMS director is hired. Mr. Cooper is continuing to search and interview candidates for this vacant position. A couple of things I want to let you all know. Ms. Gibson Becky is here, back in the county, and she's getting better, but I asked Mr. Cooper, we need someone to fill that gap. And so he appointed who he considers a very good, capable nurse, and Miss Courtney Alford. And what she does, she communicates with Becky back and forth about issues. The next item, there's been so much confusion, so much misinformation and information out there about the whole EMS situation. And Mr. Cooper explained to the board, he had in his possession a resignation letter from Mr. Mike Murphy. And he explained to the board that he accepted the letter, but him and Mike had agreed that Mike would provide certain services until a new candidate was hired. There was one candidate, the person backed out at the last minute, so he continues his search for additional candidates. That is something I asked Mike to do, to clarify the situation as best as he could, so that we'd have that information out there as to what really happened based on Mr. Cooper's, as the CEO, based on his role.
Mr. Chairman. So do we have a director? We do not have a director on emergency.
Nope, because
Medical
all,
services.
as Mr.
Aren't we required to have a director
I will
on
ask.
emergency medical services?
See, Mr. Cooper didn't say that, so I will ask.
Aren't we required by the state of Florida?
I don't know.
I don't know either, that's why I'm asking.
I'll find out for you today.
If we are, we need to get one. Or they need to get one.
They need to get you, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, they
do.
need to get one.
I'll find out and let y'all know post haste.
Why is it by default Mr. Cooper the PM director? He's also CEO.
He would have to fill that role.
He would have to.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
he would have to.
So,
Go ahead,
all right.
proceed, Mike.
Item E, whatever, 1E, including your package is a handout titled Critical Access Hospital Finance 101. Mr. Cooper gave each of the Board of Directors members a copy, and I thought it would help this board to understand some of the hospital lingo that is used when discussing Weems. I've included that in your packet, and if you want printed copies, I can do that too. But it is, if you look it over, it really does explain some of the terms that they use, how to determine some of the financial responsibilities of our critical access hospital.
Can I ask a question? Maybe this is a lawyer question? Mr. Chair, what is the mileage difference for critical access? I mean, they got so many miles before you can build.
The last time we examined that, Commissioner Lockley, was probably 2007 or 6 when Sacred Heart was at that time sort of courting Franklin County. There was some discussion about maybe merging the two and building a new Sacred Heart Hospital at the Gulf Franklin line. And I believe at that time, the mileage difference was 20 or 25 miles, maybe it was 25. And so if you have another hospital within 25 miles of a critical access designated hospital, then they are excluded from getting that critical access designation. I also recall from that time period around, again, a decade ago, there was some discussion that they Sacred Heart might be able to get a legislative dispensation, basically, to get an exception from the rule. But if that was an option that was available, they were never successful in getting it. But I'll update my research on that and report back to the board.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, item number 2. At your January 20, it has to be the 16th, that's a misprint, I'm sorry, meeting, the board asked staff to look at the possibility of funding for a floating dock at Bloody Bluff Boat Ramp. Mr. Carrington contacted Mr. Phil Manor, who manages the surrounding areas for FWC. Mr. Manor explained that FWC installed the double concrete ramp at the end of Bloody Bluff Road, which is a county road, in 2001, and that adding a dock was considered. But there was a concern that a dock perpendicular to the shore would catch debris coming down the river, especially during floods, and would require constant repairs. Instead, a floating dock was added at Gardner's Landing since it isn't directly on the Apalachicola River. Mr. Manor stated that a dock parallel to the shore would be more suitable and would probably be supported by FWC. Would the board like staff to submit an application during the next Florida Boating Improvement Grant Cycle? Board discussion. And let me own up to something, Commissioners. I didn't have that noted I didn't have that item on my notes for that meeting, so I didn't deal with it. Just fortunately, as Lori saved me, and she said, well, what about that letter? And I was like, what letter? And that's how we started working on it. So, unfortunately, the cycle for the current grant cycle for this improvement, it has expired, so we have to do it on the next one.
I think we need to move forward.
Yeah,
Any improvement,
I'll leave that up to the board.
yeah,
any
move forward
improvement.
with it.
You making a motion?
Yeah, make the motion.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Massey, second by Commissioner Sanders. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. Attached to your agenda packet is the inventory surplus list that will be auctioned online. This list has been circulated to other county departments and constitutional offices for their review. That was done by the clerk. This auction will be at no cost to the county, as a successful bid of each item pays the auction fees. Board action to authorize Florida Auction Network LLC to proceed with the online auction. This is all that equipment we've been gathering, and we're ready to move forward. They got the list, that approval, submitted to the
moved.
clerk's office,
Second.
and we're ready to go.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Sanders, second by Commissioner Lockley. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 4, Carabal's mayor, Ms. Brenda La Paz, has informed me that the legislative mandated 4 hours of ethics training will be provided by the Northwest Florida League of Cities in Carabel on Thursday, May 10th, from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Carabel Municipal Complex. There's no cost to register. Let me know if you're able to attend so I can complete the registration form. They're looking for a minimum of 10, so if five of you are going to go, I can get you registered today and guarantee the class.
I don't know what I can do.
I'm going.
Being honest.
I'll be there.
I don't have to go.
I don't know if I can take off on a Thursday.
Yeah.
Last year we did it on Saturday,
Saturday,
which worked
yeah.
out good for me, but
Yeah.
It says 8
Anyway.
to 12, right?
8 to 12.
8 to 12.
That same
What I say
man
here?
gonna teach it.
8 to 12, yeah.
no.
No, sir, this is the Florida League of Cities is putting this one on, this is not us with,
This is not
Attorney
Dan
Cox.
Cox?
No, I'm not
It will
sure.
be the whole 4 hours, y'all.
Yeah,
Strike that.
That's better than 6.
I'll just check out my schedule.
Remember the little guy, the little
And
bald
if,
guy?
Commissioner, if enough of you are not able to make it, let me know. I will get with Attorney Cox and we can do it here on a Saturday. It's up to the board, either way.
It's on a Saturday. I thought it was gonna be on a Saturday.
No, it's on
I
Thursday.
think so.
And that is isn't that the Saturday before Mother's Day
Could be at,
Yep,
on Sunday?
it is.
Well, we don't have to do it.
Tenth.
again,
think it is.
if not,
I don't
I can
have-
get the one here done in here because let me know. We'll talk about it later.
Okay.
My final item is the Quentin Eastberg, ARPC's regional planner, has notified staff of the upcoming Chapter 333 Florida Statute Workshop. This workshop will be held on Tuesday, April 24th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Appalachia Regional Planning Council's conference room. I've circulated this email to Attorney Schuler and to our airport manager, Jason Puckett. Commissioner Jones and I are also planning to attend. FDOT has sent out a request list to assist in preparation for the meeting. Board action to authorize travel for all forms of meetings.
Pleasure of the board.
So moved.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Lockley. Did you make a
Yeah, second.
second by Commissioner Massey? Any further discussion? All those in favor? All opposed? The motion carries.
Commissioners, that is my report.
While we're still here, I want to ask a question if I may. Attorney Schuler,
Yes, sir.
some of the stuff they've asked for in the email that I read, are we gonna be able to provide those things with them before the meeting so they kind of know what we're looking for or the answers we're seeking, or what are we doing? with
We
that?
do not have a airport overlay that we can provide to them because we
Okay.
never adopted that zoning ordinance to begin with.
Okay,
The reason it was never adopted is the county at that time, 2003, maybe 2004, when they were examining whether we needed to have the airport overlay. The board engaged its engineer at the time to prepare a noise study. The noise study revealed that the noise emanating from the airport never left the property boundaries of the county airport, and the county made the decision that there was no need for a zoning ordinance to fix a problem that did not exist, and that actually was an allowed option under the federal rules and regulations. I suspect when I update my research that we're going to find again that if the noise study reveals that the noise does not go outside of the airport boundaries, there's no requirement for airport zoning. But again, I have not looked at that in probably 13 or 14 years. The other information, I don't think that we have like a list of questions to provide. And this is more of a fact-finding mission in my mind to find out what the agency intends to do so that we then can react with whatever the strategy is that the board comes up with and how to respond to
okay,
this push to have airport overlay zoning. But I will note that under the current law, just as the law was back in 2003, there's no penalty in the statute for not having airport overlay zoning. I
Right.
mean, it's a requirement, but there's no penalty. We've run into this before. Our comp plan challenge, we had an ear update that a couple of people challenged, some residents down at the eastern end of the county and some wildlife organizations challenged our ear update in 2005. And there was a requirement that you do certain things that we did not do, but there was no penalty for not doing it. So it's like basketball, no harm, no foul. So there are a number of instances in Florida statutes where they tell you to do something, but there's no penalty for not doing it. So, I mean, I'll get with you, Commissioner Jones, make sure you
Okay.
develop whatever information you think we need to provide to them. But at this point, we don't have any airport zoning that we.
I don't
can
have a
give to them.
list of questions per se either. I just know when I was reading it, I was like, oh my goodness, I just didn't want us to get at that meeting and seem like, you know, we're either ill-prepared or, you know what I'm saying? I had
Yes.
a mixed bag of feelings
Well,
about it.
my initial reaction when I read that very long laundry list of questions that they wanted is they want to know our position so they can build an answer and a response to it in advance. And frankly, I don't want to give them that tactical advantage. I would rather show up at the meeting and maybe ask some questions live if it seems appropriate. But unless the board has other instructions for me, I do view this more as a fact-finding mission, building a coalition and relationships with other small rural counties that are facing these same problems. Let's share our positions, let's share our concerns with our comrades in arms, and then come back to this board and get a decision on how to move forward and respond.
I know we can't do it, force them to do it or give them to do it, but I really think the state, when they were doing that, they should have made, if they were gonna do it, they should have made two different rules or laws.
Should be accepted.
You know what I mean? There should be there's always gotta be exceptions. Or they should have done one for rural counties versus metro, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
it's crazy,
Well, it's
absolutely.
the same or a very similar situation for volunteer firefighters throughout the
Yep,
state. I
same
mean,
thing.
our volunteer firefighters on a county of 11,000 people have to meet the same standards as Miami-Dade County, and that's unrealistic, and that's something that I know the chairman's had me working on. And I've been talking to Mr. Chris Doolin, finding out what the state is doing in terms of perhaps streamlining some of the requirements for these volunteer firefighters, because it is truly burdensome for these small communities and the volunteers that we have available.
I think our biggest fear, commissioners, is FDOT says, you don't follow our rules, you don't get any more of our money. That's what all the other rural counties and
And that's what they're
municipalities,
trying
that's
to
what
play,
they're
too.
worried, yeah, that's where, you know.
Yeah, they played that card in 2003, guess
Yeah.
what?
They're
How
still-
many tens of millions of dollars in funding have we gotten since then?
Yeah, but these days is a squeeze for money though, so I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah, well, I mean, they always play that card, but
Mr. Chairman, I wanna ask Mr. Schuler, I'm gonna make a motion to have Mr. Schuler, because you're talking about the firefighter stuff and all that.
yes, ma'am.
I want you to contact Mr. Julian Hollis. He is the head of the firefighting stuff. He's the fire marshal, state fire marshal.
Yes, ma'am.
And contact him and see what we can do about our local firefighters and helping them. Because I know I've talked to some of the local firefighters, and they said that all the certification that they've done all these years is no good. And so I know that the Small County Coalition has been very instrumental in trying to get keep the standards up there, but make it easier for the volunteer fire departments. Because I'm gonna tell y'all something. If it comes down and you don't have no volunteer fire departments and you have to start funding that, that is a lot of money. So I think we would be wise to contact Mr. Julian Hollis, Halas, and talk to him about it and see what he can do to help our local firefighters. Mr. Sheila.
Yes, ma'am. I will do that.
Yeah, we're trying to get through this discussion. Now, we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Is that correct?
I don't have a motion or a second.
Okay.
Did I miss that?
It's my motion.
She made a motion, Cheryl did.
for you
Oh,
to
motion
write
for the, yes.
We have a motion by Commissioner Sanders. We got a second by Commissioner Massey, directing the county attorney. Any further discussion? I do know, as it relates to firefighters, that there was an email that was sent out by George Pruitt over in East Point, that they were given the training that the firefighters are required to have to meet the new standard.
Yeah.
Just want to put that out there for the public so that they know this class, and I don't remember the date.
Yeah.
We need to get that out, Mike, maybe put it on the website, so that our local volunteers will know what day these classes are being taught, to bring them up. I seen your hand up. It doesn't relate to this matter because public comment is over.
So it's hard to make a public comment on something that you don't know is going to be said. I'd like to comment before the meeting's over.
Okay, well,
On the fire insurance, on the.
hold on. If you gotta make a comment on what we're talking about, you need to come to the podium, state your name for the record, so that we have a record of who's speaking.
Cliff Butler, and to follow up on what Commissioner Sanders said, your volunteer fire departments are critical to this county. If we do not have them, you're gonna see your fire insurance rates skyrocket. So we need to help them any way we can.
Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the email from Mr. Pruitt, they're getting together a class, and it's gonna be held in East Point, but they're asking people to, if they're interested, to get in touch with them so they can try to do the cost and schedule and that kind of
Could you
thing.
forward that to me, Commissioner?
Yep, no problem.
Thank you.
I had a motion and a second. Did we get a vote yet, or did I?
No.
I think we still need to vote on Commissioner Sanders' motion for me to contact.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? All opposed? That motion carries.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, just a couple of issues. First is an action item. I'm requesting board approval to conduct a public hearing for the board to consider a possible amendment to the parking ordinance down at Alligator Point. I've been contacted by the Sheriff's Department a couple of times, wanting to know if your current parking ordinance authorizes using boots to immobilize vehicles that are illegally parked as opposed to towing them. Your current ordinance requires towing, and an alternative is a civil penalty and possibly even a second-degree misdemeanor for repeat offenders, but there's no provision in your current parking ordinance that allows placing a boot to immobilize vehicles at Alligator Point that are illegally parked. So I'm just requesting board approval to conduct a public hearing for you to consider whether to amend your ordinance.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Schuler?
Yes,
Is there
ma'am.
any way that we can see the amendment to the ordinance before you do a public hearing?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Board
because we need to
discretion.
do this because if they put a boot on that, are they gonna be able to pay the fine down there and then have the boot removed?
Yes, ma'am. The whole point is, the way it's been explained to me by the sheriff's department is, instead of towing the vehicle from Alligator Point back to East Point or some other location of Wakulla County, the vehicle would be immobilized on site, and there would be an ability to pay whatever fine is due, and then remove the boot from the vehicle.
Would they
That's
pay
why
the
the
fine,
sheriff-
would they pay the fine, or would the sheriff then have a person to issue a citation to?
Well, right now,
And then it would
the-
run through the clerk's office?
the sheriff's department would be the one issuing the citations, any law enforcement officer. You wouldn't have the towing company would not be collecting the money, it would be going through the sheriff's
There
department.
you go, that's what I was
So
gonna say.
you would have a local law enforcement official collecting it, and then, of course, it'd have to be accounted for and turned in to the clerk's office. But if y'all want to see a pro forma of the proposed amendment before having the public hearing,
I would.
absolutely, I will do that.
That's why they do it on that TV show, Parking Wars.
Parking Wars.
They put the boot on, they write a ticket, you pay for your ticket, they take the boot off.
And
And it's-
that goes back to the incident that I reported earlier, where people's vehicles towed to East Point, and they're out over there in Alligator Harbor, and they come in, there's no truck, there's no boat, no there's no trailer, there's nothing, they don't know where it went.
Nothing.
And they can't walk from Alligator Point back to East Point to pick their vehicle up, so.
Correct.
It really created a controversy.
Yes, sir, and that'd be good to put the boot on, they come out, they just call and get the boot off.
So I put the boot on Alan, and Alan had to take care of it. I mean, I didn't know what to tell these people, you know? I didn't know what to tell them. It was a long walk from Alligator Point to East Point to get the vehicle.
But Commissioner Sanders, I will draft, and other board members, I will draft the proposed amendment and send it to you and let you look at it your next board
Yeah, I feel more
meeting.
comfortable doing that, because like I said, I wanna, I mean, we're gonna do a public hearing, but I wanna know what we're gonna be doing a public hearing on, the language and stuff.
Yes, ma'am. That is my only action item. I usually don't talk about non-action items, but I did want to bring the board up to date and the public on your directive to me to monitor potential annexation activities by the city of Apalachicola. To that end, I sent them a public record request at the beginning of this year. It's probably late January, first part of February, I guess. And I also sent a public record request to the Northwest Florida Water Management District. The result of those public record requests is that from the city of Apalachicola, they were still gathering information on potential annexation ordinances as late as September of last year, but they have not actually applied for any grants to extend their water and sewer lines outside the municipal boundaries. They have not received any applications for voluntary annexations. And in my conversations with Mr. Brett Cyphers, who is the executive director of the Water Management District, he reports that they have not received any applications from the city of Apalachicola for funding to extend their water and sewer services. The reason that is important, the reason I'm looking at that issue is most municipalities within the state, when they seek to annex, they do it in conjunction with an extension of water and sewer services. Mr. Cyphers has reported to me that if in fact they should receive in the future an application from the city of Apalachicola for funding, that he will contact me as the representative for the county and inform me that they have received that application. I think the implicit message in that is don't make any more public records requests, Mr. Schuler. We've got your back, the county's back, and we'll let you know if we receive an application. And then finally, on the issue of annexation, the city, as you may recall, had been presenting a letter signed by Alan Pierce, the former mayor of the city of Apalachicola, concerning annexation. Mr. Pierce has written a rebuttal letter to that. He signed that letter back in the year 2000, committing to annex these wildlands west of town, because he was presented with a letter from staff or a consultant from the city saying the grant requires it. Well, I finally got a copy of that grant from the city. I've read that grant. There is no requirement for annexation within that grant that they used to purchase those wildlands. So he has written a letter of rebuttal that is now a part of your official record. Other than that,
Just do what I'm told.
we do what the facts say. Then, good news on Abercrombie Boat Ramp. The original draft of my report that I sent to you last week exhibited some frustration with the lack of response from Duke Energy. On Monday morning, I received a email and update from Mr. Dwayne Butler with Duke Energy that they now have your materials on hand. They've led a contract, and the lights, the work to install the lights at Abercrombie should begin on April the 12th. And with that, I have no further update for the board.
Any comments from the board, from Mr. Schuler?
Yeah. Mr. Schuler,
Yes, sir.
since we cut ties with that hospital group this morning, we don't owe them no money, do we?
Not that I'm aware, not for negotiations, no, sir.
Okay, all right.
We're down to, the gentleman in the audience would like to make a public comment, which we do not allow. Advice from the attorney. We've already had our public comment.
Yes, sir, we've already had public comment earlier. I think that what the board had wanted to do in circumstances like this is if an issue comes up for discussion during the board meeting, then they could come back to the next board meeting under public comment and discuss that. The exception would be if it's a public hearing, like an ordinance hearing, then they obviously have a right to stand up and speak and make a presentation during the public hearing. But otherwise, public comment is to be taken under public comment.
Mr. Chairman, while we're in the board meeting setting, let me ask Alan a question I forgot to ask him, if you don't mind. It won't take just a second. Alan, when is the proposed date to fix the boat ramp back at Oclotney River? Oclotney Bay?
I don't know. I know
You
that
know, because-
Fonda, we received the money, and Fonda was hoping to do it in-house. My recollection.
what he told me.
Well, we haven't had it fixed
Okay.
yet, so can you contact Mr. Fonda Davis and get him to
We
work on
received the
that
money from FEMA to get it
ASAP?
fixed. It was considered a small project, so the money came in.
Because if you remember, I know it wasn't fixed because, the mayor of Carabel asked to use that,
Railing.
the railing again.
And the response I got from Fonda was that the time she was asking for it, it would have been fixed by then.
Oh, I didn't know about the rail.
Okay,
Yeah.
double check it.
I will.
Because last time I rode through there, it wasn't fixed.
I know we had to build a new ramp.
Yeah.
I know that was done, but now whether it's been placed back in the
Yeah.
Oclotney boat ramp, I don't
That's what
know.
I'm saying.
But I do know the ramp was rebuilt.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is commissioner comment.
Mr. Chairman,
Mhm.
I'd like to ask Michael something. I'm letting him finish first.
Go ahead.
I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name, and I'm sorry, I've been blank all morning. I was blank, blank still. The gentleman said with Gulf County EMS, when did you say it?
Houston. Houston, I can't remember the last name.
Yeah.
Say again?
Houston Whitfield.
Yes.
Whitfield, yeah. When did you say we were gonna meet?
Tomorrow, we're trying to set up a meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock to discuss their EMS model because theirs is a county department. And we just wanted to see how they do it and for how much it costs and who they pay what and so forth. So we're trying to do that for 10 o'clock tomorrow. I was gonna contact him after the meeting today to verify time and the place.
One other thing I would ask that I would like to get you to do, Michael, I got this information from Mr. Bob Allen,
Yes, sir.
and he's asking all the commissioners to get it, so if I.
I did.
Oh, did
He
you?
gave you enough copies
I
for
didn't know.
all.
I was gonna say you could put it in an email and send it to us. I didn't know there were copies
yeah.
disseminated. I'm sorry.
Probably more copies than we
It's all
wanted. Yes,
good.
sir.
Yeah, well, it was asked to do, so I'm
Yes.
just trying to follow through.
Yes, sir.
Any other commissioner comment? Meeting's adjourned.